Okay, so the next thing I would like to do is restore the GRUB bootloader. So in the past I had a corrupted GRUB, and then I tried to show the process of bringing GRUB back. But it didn't really work because I didn't know the steps at the time that I showed it. But I know the steps now, so I'm gonna real quickly show how to do that. However, the GRUB that's corrupted is in a hard drive image, and that's not even on a hard drive right now. So I'm gonna grab my server, take the drive out, and then load the image from my main computer, and then we'll put it back in and then restore GRUB on that image or on that drive once I get it loaded on there. So the first thing we need to do is take the drive out of the server, and I thought I may as well show that on camera because why not? You'll get to see the inside of the server and stuff like that. So why don't we grab it and take the drive out? I do need to take the drive out because the image is on my main system and I don't really have a better way than just taking out the drive, loading it on with a SATA to USB adapter, and then putting it back in the server. And when we get it in the server, then we'll switch to the green screen, by the way, for the rest of the video. So let's swap out the hard drive real quick and do the imaging. So I'm gonna grab the server from here. Let's find a surface where we can use it. I should be able to use it right on this surface right here. I'm gonna set it down and move the camera so you guys can see it. Okay, so here's the top-down view of the server. So to take the cover off, the cover is on the top like this. Basically remove these 4 screws. You can see I have a screwdriver here, then there's a screw over here, then there on the sides. Once you get all that, then it just kind of slides. You want to make sure you don't pinch your fingers as you slide it because it's very easy for that to happen. And just take the cover off like so. And that's what the inside looks like. So obviously you got the motherboard, the heatsink, and then wireless card is this one. Then the gigabit card is right there, and that provides 4 ports. So I believe the hard drive I want is this one right here. So then we just come in and there's some screws on the inside. Unfortunately, this is too narrow for me to even reach this kind of screwdriver, so I would probably use a different screwdriver. I also happen to have this Allen wrench Phillips head, which came with this. As you can imagine, I need to get in to screw this in. So now I just unscrew the screws that are where the hard drive cage is, and I magnetize this, which is kind of handy to have as well. Power supply cord gets in the way. Because yeah, the power supply is here, then there's a cord that actually feeds out to here. Then I can plug it in from the outside. When you get in a server form factor, things are a little bit different. And there's 2 screws for the hard drive cage on this side as well, so I might be able to get away with removing just the drive alone. But taking the cage out, I will say, makes things a lot easier. So I typically store 3 SSDs inside of here, but the boot drive used to be in my primary system, and that's what I'm going to use right now because it's not officially set up with anything yet. So I'm able to use that as one of the only spare drives that I have for this purpose. So I got a drive here. So essentially, yeah, this is the boot drive which I want to take out. I will also mention I don't go very tight on the screws because first of all, I'm not shipping, and second of all, the screws could strip really easily, and if that happens, then I'm screwed. So probably hold the hard drive so it doesn't have so much pressure on just one screw. You'll notice I only had 2 screws in there because that's really all that's needed, and I was a little bit short on screws as well. Okay, so now that's the hard drive that I need, so I can just unhook the SATA as well as the power. Now I have the drive, so I'm gonna image it with the corrupt GRUB, and then we're gonna repair GRUB in a live environment, and I'll show how that process works. So we're gonna be on the green screen as soon as I get that. I'm not really gonna show the process of putting the server thing back on, but you can imagine you just line up the cover. Make sure you don't pinch your fingers in the corners because it is a very tight fit and it does hurt. I speak from personal experience. So, yeah. Okay, so the server is all ready to go now. So now I just have to start it up and then we can proceed with the steps. So now it's starting up. So now I just press F7 to get to my boot menu. So if you look at what we actually have here, this is technically a corrupted GRUB. Sometimes GRUB just completely goes missing altogether, and this GRUB is technically there, but as far as we're concerned, this is a missing GRUB and basically not functional, and we need to perform the steps to restore GRUB. So I'm going to show you how to do that, since I kind of have to do it right here, and hopefully these steps will be a little bit more structured and prepared and everything like that, unlike the previous time I showed it. I didn't know how to do it off the top of my head, but I sort of do now. Okay, so I'm going to boot into a Linux live environment using Ventoy. I'll use Linux Mint. This Linux distro was based on Debian. This is actually raw Debian that I'm trying to restore here. And Mint is ultimately based on Debian as well. If I was doing an Arch-based distribution like Manjaro, I'd want to use Arch for this. But a Linux Mint live environment will work just fine for our purposes right now, because all we need access to really is a command line. And a live environment that provides enough tools for what we need to do. So how do we restore GRUB? Well, let's pull up a terminal real quick. The first thing we need to do is mount the root and boot partition on the actual drive. So I would run lsblk to figure out what that is. So in my instance, this is the actual drive right here. So this is the root partition, that's the boot partition. So the first thing I want to do is mount root probably to the MNT folder, just wherever we need to be able to access it. So I would do sudo mount dev sda2 in my case. You'd want to figure out what it is for you, to MNT, and then we want to mount root or boot, which is dev sda1 to MNT boot. So now we have our file system effectively mounted. So before we could do that, we need to set an R bind for the system folders like proc, sys, and dev. So to do that, you just do sudo mount R bind with /dev to mnt dev. Then same thing with proc and sys. So now we got the sudo file system mounted. So once we get that, then we can chroot into our new environment. So just chroot into mnt. Now we're basically in our install, now that we got everything mounted. So we're essentially gonna reinstall GRUB more or less. So this is on an EFI install, and since we're already root, we don't need sudo. So I'll just do grub install, then I'm gonna specify EFI directory since I'm on EFI. And I'm gonna wanna set that equal to boot EFI, because that's how it is in my situation anyway. So that should have worked. So now we need to update our grub boot entry. So here we just run update grub. And then it basically found as much as it could. If everything is there, it should all show up. So once we get that, then we can basically exit it. Then we would probably unmount everything. However, I don't know if that's really necessary. I'd probably just reboot the environment at that point and see if we fixed it. So now we just get out of our live environment and then wait for it to boot up again. Okay, so now we'll see two completely separate entries. That could happen sometimes. I'm not really sure how to deal with that. There could be multiple EFI things, I'm not sure. I don't know if that quite worked. Let's try the other entry once. Okay, first entry. Same thing. So, I think this is a very corrupted grub right here, but if grub was only partially corrupt, those steps we did should make it fully work again. I've done the steps on other systems and it has worked properly, so yeah, this is probably a bad example, but if you do follow those steps, they should be the correct steps. I have done those in the past. I would not be sharing this if I hadn't had luck with this before. I totally have. So yeah, I mean, that's basically the process of repairing grub. So hopefully this helped inspire you if you need to do that yourself. And I primarily wanted to go over it because I tried to show it in the past, but I didn't know it off the top of my head. It's not really the easiest to find the steps online. That's another huge reason why I'm doing this. If it were easy to find online, I wouldn't even bother. Otherwise, that's how you do it, so yeah, that's it.